Latest in our lunchtime presentations by Hendricks Wealth and Estate Management. The topic for today is "'Tis the Season, the Power of Gifting." And I am Sean Hendricks. I'll be hosting this presentation. I am joined by Jim Hendricks, Jim Madel, and Dan Leitner from our firm. And I will be presenting to you talking about gifting and how you can use it. Before I jump to the next slide, I want to give a caveat that the next slide shows that I am equally impressed and terrified by AI. It might be the pinnacle of AI as far as I'm concerned so far. So there's me. I'm your host. I am an estate planning attorney and a financial advisor at Hendricks Wealth and Estate Management. You can see my licenses there, and I'd like to joke that I'm slowly looking more and more like Santa every year. Probably the scariest thing about this picture is it only added a beard and a hat, didn't have to add much else. So anyway, to jump into the actual topics, when I say gifting and the power of gifting, what do I mean when I use that term? And the most important thing when it comes to gifting, at least as far as I'm concerned, from an estate planning perspective at least, is that we want to know what the IRS's definition of a gift is. The IRS's definition is any transfer to an individual, either directly or indirectly, where full consideration measured in money or money's worth is not received in return. So in other words, anything that you give without getting something back, at least in the eyes of IRS, can be viewed as a gift. Now, why am I going to be talking about the IRS? Why am I going to ruin the holidays talking about the IRS when we're supposed to be talking about gifts? But in retirement and estate planning, we want to make sure that we follow the rules that the IRS has set out. And the IRS has actually given us some guidelines that we have to follow for dollar values that are associated with gifts and how you can use them. So you may have heard that the IRS allows a person to gift to any other person a certain amount each year. And for 2025 and 2026, that amount is $19,000 per person per year. This amount is known as it's called the annual exclusion amount. And this amount, we're going to revisit this several times during the presentation. So if you see 19,000, or if you hear that annual exclusion amount term during this presentation, just remember that those are the same thing. In addition to the annual exclusion amount, there's also something called a lifetime exemption amount. And the lifetime exemption amount, there's two different levels that we have to think about. There's the federal level, and some states have their own level. So for federal, which applies to everybody in the United States, the lifetime gift exemption amount is $15 million per person. A married couple can combine that amount for $30 million. And in Illinois, where I am, the state has its own limit. That limit is $4 million. And it can't be combined like you can in the federal, with the federal limit. But the lifetime gift exemption is the maximum amount that a person can give during their lifetime for any gifts that exceed the annual exclusion amount before they'll have to start paying taxes at either the federal or the state level. So it's the threshold above which you have to worry about estate taxes, below which you're going to be okay. So the IRS definitions, they like to use big words like exclusions, exemptions. It feels like there's a lot of double negatives built in there. So how does it actually work? And the 19,000 annual exclusion amount is a use it or lose it option. So each year you can give $19,000 to pretty much anyone you want. And if you are a married couple, you can actually both give $19,000 to anyone you want. But if you don't use it in a given year, you can't go back. So it's something that you have on a yearly basis to be able to potentially give. Any amount that you give above that $19,000 amount in a given year counts towards your lifetime exemption amount. So it's almost like the IRS says, hey, that 19,000 is going to kind of be the low threshold, or the minimal amount that we're going to pay attention to. But above that, we're going to start keeping track. So if you give more than 19,000 to any person in a single year, the IRS requires you to file a gift tax return And that's how you report to the IRS that you've used up some of that lifetime exemption amount. And so you have to keep track of that year over year to make sure that when it's time for your estate tax to be calculated, that any reductions to that lifetime exemption have also been accounted for. So now that I've talked a lot about the IRS, and hopefully everybody's still paying attention, can we finally talk about gifting? And to talk about the power of gifting, I'm going to use a hypothetical. All right, the hypothetical is going to involve parents who have an adult child, and presumably this child was on the nice list if they want to give gifts to them. And the parents in this hypothetical started making gifts to that child in 2015. Since there are two parents, they each combined their gift amounts each year for this child starting in 2015, and they continued through the end of 2024. So in this hypothetical, what would that potentially look like? So right now, this year, the exclusion amount is $19,000. But since we're looking back in time, we're looking back to 2015. And in 2015, the exclusion amount was $14,000. So if two parents gave $14,000 in 2015, their total gift would be $28,000, as you can see here. So in each year, as the exclusion amount went up, if the parents each gave that amount, we're really just doubling it and then adding it up to see how much they gave as a total. So over that 10-year period, the total amount of the gifts add up to $306,000. Now, if we consider what would have happened if those funds had been invested during an index fund during that time. And for this example, we're just using a basic S&P 500 index fund. So in this hypothetical, if the gifts had been invested with the average returns that are posted, you can see the information here about where they're posted and what the rate is. The growth on that money would have resulted in at the end of the period being $594,370.50. So this does assume that the gifts were given at the beginning of each year, starting in 2015, and the gifts stopped after 10 years. So if you invest those gifts instead of just giving them as cash, you've got the potential to have some nice growth on that gift. All right, so you can go from 306 in this hypothetical to $594,370.50. So that shows the power of compound interest, and that makes gifting a powerful tool. But what else can we use it for? And I call these the exemptions from the exemptions. So the IRS says you can give $19,000 to pretty much anyone you want any year, but then they carve out some additional exemptions where if you wanted to pay tuition for someone, as long as you pay that money directly to the school and you're not paying it to the individual, the IRS says that that gift is not going to be subject to the $19,000 limit. Similarly, medical bills can be paid in a similar manner. As long as you're not giving the money directly to the person, you can make medical payments on behalf of someone that would not count as your $19,000 gift. There are also some exemptions for making political and charitable contributions. In those categories, you may not be subject to that $19,000 limit. So there are some things that you can do even above and beyond that $19,000. Now, in my world, when I'm wearing my attorney hat, I sometimes use gifting as an estate planning strategy. And one of the main reasons to gift, from the estate planning point of view, is because you want to get assets out of your taxable estate. So if you give something to someone, you are giving up ownership and control of that item. In the eyes of the IRS, or those assets, in the eyes of the IRS, you no longer own it, and so it's outside of your taxable estate. If you gift it while you're living, it will also generally avoid probate because it's not yours anymore. The nice thing is if you gift appreciating assets, then those assets can continue to grow outside of your estate as well. And so to rely on the previous example that we gave, where the parents gave $306,000 worth of cash, the growth on that removed $594,370.50 potentially from their taxable estate. In other words, if they had kept that and invested it the same way, they removed that amount from their estate. And so if they were above the federal estate tax threshold, they would have saved at least $105,717. So using gifting as an estate planning strategy can be a super powerful tool, both to help the people that you love, but also to potentially reduce estate taxes if those are going to be a problem for you. So aside from just giving gifts outright, right? And so at the holidays, you think of just giving someone a gift, they open it, it's theirs. There are other ways to give gifts as well. You can give gifts through trusts. So if you don't want to give someone the money outright, right? If you want to put some conditions on when they can get it or when they can use it, then you may want to use a trust to do that. And for this type of giving, we would primarily use something called irrevocable trusts, where the gift is given into this irrevocable trust. It's held outside of your estate, and then there are some conditions on when the beneficiary can use the gifts or when they can get them. So to keep with our theme here, imagine your child's on the nice list, but you don't want them to get a lump sum of money right away. An irrevocable trust could be a good way to do that. Another way to give that can use charity as a way of potentially mitigating some tax issues as well is to use donor advised funds, or sometimes you'll hear these called DAFs, qualified charitable distributions, you might hear these referred to as QCDs, or charitable remainder trusts, which are a special type of trust called CRTs. And there's actually a few others in that category as well. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation. But these types of DAFs, QCDs, and CRTs are things that can be used if you want to give money to charity, but also potentially use giving as a way to reduce some tax issues that you might be having. These strategies have actually been discussed previously, and so if you're interested in learning more about those, we have a full video that talks a lot more about those. So please visit our video archive to learn more about those specific DAFs, QCDs, and CRTs. So all of this sounds great about gifting, but there is a warning that I sometimes encounter that I wanted to talk about as well. So if you are giving to someone and you're giving, let's say, the $19,000 a year, one potential conflict that can happen is if you are giving and you are or you may become eligible for Medicaid at some point in the future, Medicaid has something called the look-back rule. And so when someone applies for Medicaid, the state will generally try to make sure that the person didn't just give away all their assets just to become eligible for Medicaid. So in many states, including Illinois, if a person gives a gift within 5 years of applying for Medicaid, that gift can trigger a penalty. And that penalty, again, called the look-back rule. If they are found to have violated the look-back rule, they may be ineligible for Medicaid, and payments may be withheld for a certain period of time, depending upon the size of the gift. And the reason I talk about this is that the IRS language, they call the $19,000 gift an exclusion amount. And sometimes people think, hey, is that exclusion amount excluded from that look-back rule? And it is not. So that amount can still trigger a Medicaid look-back issue for you. So in talking about gifting, I wanted to make sure that I talked about the potential trap or the pitfalls as well. So there's a lot more to gifting than just what I can cover in a relatively brief presentation. But I wanted to take a moment to see if there are any questions in the Q&A section. And if there are not, you can always reach out to us. You can see our phone number there, 847-428-3997. Go to our website, www.hendrickswealth.com. Send us an email at info@hendrickswealth.com. Or just go ahead and ask a question if you have any right now. Otherwise, I'll give it a minute or two. Jim, or Dan, do you guys have anything to add while we've got a minute and we're waiting for a question or two?
Oh, the only thing I have, Sean, that was great information that you provided for everyone. This will be our last webinar of 2025. We will resume again on January 7th of next year. And Dan Leitner, who is part of this meeting, will be speaking about renting versus buying, the math no one explains. So please feel free to join us for that. Again, as Sean said, you can go to our website there, and there's a link, there's a tab there that's listed as events, and you can sign up for any of the webinars throughout 2026 via that link.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. And since there don't seem to be any questions in the Q&A page, I will go ahead and show our team off for a minute here, give you the information about our phone numbers one more time. And also, please remember just to check our website for the events tab, because there's lots of good stuff, some stuff from the past and some stuff that's coming up. So if you enjoyed this presentation or you want to learn more about a wide range of topics, there's lots of good information there for you potentially. And I still don't see a question in the Q&A. So if we don't have anything for today, that'll be all for now. But hopefully you'll join us for presentations in the future, and we will look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.